You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. While you're planning beach trips, barbecues, and 3-day weekends, your wireless bill should be the last thing holding you back. That's why so many people are making the switch to Mint Mobile.
Say hasta la vista to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you.
All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts.
Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium service from Mint Mobile for $15. Amy, didn't you say that your sister is on Mint Mobile and loves it?
Yes, it was the best option for her when she finally got her own mobile wireless plan.
Honestly, I think that it might be the best option for anyone who needs their own mobile wireless plan. It sounds amazing.
This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get your summer savings and shop premium wireless plans at mintmobile.com/booktalk. That's mintmobile.com/BOOKTALK.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months. 5 gigabyte plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Tax and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Who says you can't be the topic of conversation for all the right reasons? The Hyundai Tucson Hybrid pairs bold presence with advanced technology and sleek style. It's everything you didn't know you needed in an SUV and then some. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more.
As the king's champion, Celaena Sardothien is dispatched to assassinate enemies of the king, a fact all those around her struggle to reconcile. But Celaena is keeping a dark secret from them. Instead of committing murder, the assassin aids the escape of those supposed foes. When word of rebel forces intent on disrupting the king's plans come to light, the king of Adarlan requires Celaena to find and kill her old friend, Archer Finn. He is not the only one who wants things from her, though. Dorian wants friendship, Nehemia wants Celaena to rebel, and Kale just wants to keep Celaena safe.
Hey there, we're BookTok for BookTok with Jac and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously.
We embrace and respect modern fantasy, romance, and romantasy books written by women. And so, it's in our nature to analyze these books as we would any other novel we might have dissected in school.
With our combined 13 years of literary academic training, we use our education to analyze and give voice to the reasons why you may love or hate today's popular books.
If you're new, let's catch you up. Each season, we cover one book and conduct an in-depth literary analysis. When we do a literary analysis, we take everything at face value and find ways to link the clues in the text together. We also focus on 2 literary lenses through which we review the text, providing 2 different perspectives of interpretation.
I'm Jac. I did my bachelor's in creative writing at Arizona State University with Amy, and I did my master's in comparative literature at Queen Mary University of London. I am using the feminist lens, and I'll be analyzing the text through hetero-gender norms and stereotypes, which I in no way, shape, or form reflect my personal views on gender, and will only be a tool I use to discuss aspects of this novel.
I'm Amy, and I met Jac when we attended the same creative writing bachelor's program, after which I received my master's in education. As usual, I will provide my analysis through a Marxist lens, where I'll view different power dynamics among the characters and the world itself. Sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's not. Food, metaphors, animal traits, positioning, and more all lend themselves to the Marxist lens.
This is part 1 of our first episode where we're discussing Sarah J. Maas's second novel in the Throne of Glass series, Crown of Midnight. In this episode, we'll cover chapters 1 through 5. For a complete list of episodes and chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle BookTok for BookTok. Now, so begins my struggle with you.
Should we change it to split?
No, I did it last time. I figured it out by the end of the year. So if no one knows what we're talking about, this is our disclaimers and trigger warning section. So before we dive in, let's talk about SPILT. Spoilers, perspective, interpretation, language, and themes.
Spoilers. While our discussion is about Crown of Midnight, important context from the first 3 novels in the series will be discussed without spoiler warnings. This is specifically Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. This is not a read-along for anyone who hasn't read at least these 3 books. And you will be spoiled from here on out. In fact, the first question we ask will spoil the entire series for you if you haven't read at least this book. So please, take this as your only spoiler warning. For all other spoilers beyond Heir of Fire and other SJM works, we will keep those to the breadcrumbs and broomsticks area at the end of the episode.
Perspective and interpretation. What we discuss in this episode are strictly our own and personal interpretations of the text. We do not speak for Sarah Jane Maas in no way know her intentions for her books or characters. We also know our listeners have their own personal views and options and opinions, and we encourage you to share your thoughts with us because every perspective and interpretation is worth exploring.
Language. I should have changed this one. I'm gonna read it anyway, even though Jac tries to keep her swearing to a minimum for the sake of her mother. Explicit language does occur mostly by me.
And as we learned last season, that's
also
not true.
By Jac.
Themes. We also discuss some heavy subjects throughout this podcast that can include themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. While we will do our best to give trigger warnings for the darker themes, we will discuss these topics when they are important to the text. Listener discretion is advised.
As always, we love keeping the conversation going because our listeners are so good at finding things we've overlooked or missed completely. You can share your interpretation of the text with us by posting on social media, tagging us in stories, sending us DMs, or submitting to the form on our website. We also post more exclusive content and host live streams for our Patreon supporters. You can find us at patreon.com/BookTok for BookTok.
At the beginning of every episode, we ask ourselves a question, but because this is the first episode of the season, we're going to ask our question for the whole book itself. And then we're going to come back in the last episode and really wish that we knew what we were doing with this question. So the question we ask ourselves, have the circumstances and outcomes of Crown of Midnight properly prepared Celaena to begin her journey as Aelin, Ash River Galathynius?
I just got chills.
Oh my God, thank you.
I don't know why.
Because I'm great at talking?
You're great.
I don't know.
The question we're asking ourselves for this episode specifically is, do we believe the opening of Crown of Midnight is adequately set up by the preceding events in Throne of Glass, as well as, just the status of everyone and their relationships? Because there is a lot going on.
A lot of situationships here.
Yeah.
Themes we will see in this section include imaginary lines and evolving relationships, as well as misinformation. Now, before we start, phone's on silent.
Oh, excellent
Do
point.
not disturb.
All right. We are in part 1 of Crown of Midnight, and it is titled The King's Champion. Now, we know who this is because we read Throne of Glass. This is Celaena and her new persona as a result of winning the competition in Throne of Glass. Identity is important in this novel in so many different layers. We already know. It's in our question.
We prepared you for this. Have you already failed? There will be a test at the end of this.
Oh, no.
Also, to our listeners, we should start having pop quiz at the end.
We should.
I actually think that's a good idea.
I think we can post questions on our Spotify.
On Spotify. Yeah, it could be like pop quiz.
That's hilarious.
I actually really like that. All right. More work for us.
Yeah. Something to think about later. How identity evolves as secrets are uncovered is also important. But before we can get there, we have to start where we left off, which are the consequences of Celaena winning the competition. Now, I love this first chapter of Crown of Midnight because I feel like it starts out as a classic horror scene. There are different elements of imagery that lend itself to this horror vibe. There are shutters swinging. It's a darkened manor, and there's a figure that slithers about, aka Celaena is the monster in the night. I want to point this out because there are multiple instances where Celaena is compared to a wraith. Quote, silent and smooth as a wraith. I'll get into another instance a little bit later on. Now, the true definition of a wraith is a ghost or ghost-like image of someone especially seen shortly before or after their death. Now, because I play a lot of video games, there are a lot of wraiths in video games, and they are traditionally like a woman who's been wronged or dies tragically. And that person despises the living. Why is it only female? I don't know.
We should have more male wraiths. I'm not saying kill them.
Yeah. There are some video games where they're genderless, but like
more representation.
More representation.
So, you know what actually kind of made me think of this, though, is as you were talking was the creature in the library where it's like lurking around at night. It also
slithers at some point, doesn't it? You're right. You're right.
At this point, though, we have the use of the storm, and it not only hides Celaena's actions of slipping into the house, but I like to imagine that it's hiding her true actions, which is not killing this man. And we are in a super distant third person for a reason. Quote, the king's champion pressed herself into an alcove at the thud of approaching steps. So this is not Celaena, right? This is the king's champion. And because there is that distance, we do not know her true actions. We are only assuming that she is killing like she's supposed to. And it's meant to do that little misdirect.
I love that point that the distance is intentional from like an observing point of view. I thought about also the fact that I don't believe Celaena's name is used in this chapter. Yeah. It's not used until the start of the second chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it's also a signal to us that Celaena is in her king's champion persona and therefore forsaking her other identity to do this to do this work, not worth. Despite this, despite her kind of forsaking herself to be and embody the king's champion, I think the narrative is already giving us a sense of her inner conflict, which we're going to dive more into as the chapters proceed. And what it's showing us is that she's not completely without conscience. Quote, it wasn't her place to ask questions. Her job was to obey. Her freedom depended on it. It's a nice little reminder of her motivations, but also a signal of where she stands mentally. I'm thinking of questions. Nope. Gotta shut it down. Can't be distracted by the questions that I have.
It comes back down to that distant third person, right? Like she is disassociating from her actions so much so that she is not even narrating this scene. Now, Celaena's not the narrator. We talk about the different types of narration in the Throne of Glass series. It's all in third person. Sometimes it's more distant. Sometimes it's a little bit more close. But this is aggressively not in her perspective. And that's because she can't even say the truth that she is disobeying the king. Mm-hmm. She can't even imply that she's disobeying the king. It is her job to obey. Her freedom depended on it. And yet that is the exact opposite of what she is doing, right? So the narrator is just as much out of the loop as us readers are. Now, the moment... Oh, yes?
No, I was just going to say great point.
Thank you. You know, was that the first great point of the season?
I think so.
Yay! A moment about descriptions and her surroundings before we move on. There's a couple of things here. Quote, her sword slid out of its sheath with barely a whine. And there's a couple other things, right? There's dark groans. The sword is whining. There's a lot of human sounds happening in inanimate. Thank you. Inanimate, happening in inanimate objects around her. And I can't say it for whatever reason.
How about non-sentient?
Non-sentient, yeah. It's one of those words that, and that's my first fuck up of the season. Prepare for more. But basically what I'm saying, though, is that that there has to be humanity in the objects around her, since we are not finding humanity within her.
I think that is a fantastic point. And the literary device is called anthropomorphizing.
Yeah.
If that's easier to say than inanimate, I don't know.
No, say it again.
No,
just say it once.
Anthropomorphizing.
Anthropomorphizing.
There you go. You got that.
It just other ends. I don't know. I'm done now.
Too many N's and M's. I get it.
Inanimate.
Oh, no, you did it the first time.
Inanimate.
There you go.
Hell yeah. Welcome to our literary podcast where I have a fucking master's and I can't speak. You know what? I wrote my dissertation. I didn't talk it. I was
going to say, our brains and our mouths, there's a lot of pathways that could be interrupted between the two.
Yeah.
And then we get the last kind of horror thriller vibe scene where Aelin raises her sword just as the Lord of Nerol is waking up. And then it fades to black.
And then we get chapter 2 where Celaena strolls on up to the castle and she thinks, quote, actually, there were few in this castle she didn't outrank now, and fewer still who didn't fear her. Identity is a theme, but so is status, because you can't have status without an identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because at the end of the day, though, she is Queen of Terrasen and she genuinely outranks everyone except for the king. She is equal to the king. So I feel like we're going to find a lot more subtle queen moments here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be flagging every single one.
I think that's a great point. This also made me think about at the start of Throne of Glass, Celaena thinks a lot about how she's Adarlan's greatest assassin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was her trying to convince herself that she wasn't completely malnourished and her body destroyed.
Yeah.
But now she's like, I outrank everyone and they're afraid of me. And it's a reassurance for her how far she's come.
Yeah. True.
So now that Celaena's back in Rifthold, this chapter opens with Celaena's name, Celaena Sardothien. And I bring this up because of what we just said. She's not forsaking her identity as Celaena to be the king's champion. Now she is Celaena, she is not the king's champion. And I think that change between chapter 1 and chapter 2 is important because ultimately I think Celaena was prepared to kill Lord Nerol if he didn't agree to escape. I think she would have had to follow through if he wasn't like, okay, I'll do anything you tell me to do. Because she had been prepared to kill him, she had to be the king's champion. But because we learn later, she is able to help him fake his death, she is more like herself. She feels like she's allowed to be more in her own skin.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we get a sense of who's present in the room. We are in the throne room and the king, Dorian, and Chaol are present along with, other guards. Celaena observes that Chaol is, quote, always between her and the royal family. Now, she's talking about the physical positioning. Celaena's walked into the throne room. Chaol is there, and Dorian and the king are seated behind Chaol. However, the way I vigorously highlighted this was...
Vigorously? We did it on a Kindle.
I know. Let me pretend.
How vigorous can that be? The way you copy selected.
Actually, not important. My phone Kindle and my computer Kindle will not sync, so I had to type all my notes. I couldn't copy paste.
I hate when that happens.
So annoying.
Oh.
Anyway, I did vigorously highlight / type my notes.
Yeah.
Which is, Chaol is stuck between the royal family and Celaena. And right here, we are seeing the physical representation of that. And it's symbolic of his struggle in this novel. And Celaena knows it. Quote, Chaol might be her friend, might be someone she'd somehow come to trust, but he was still captain, still responsible for the royal lives in this room above all others. She knows this. Mm-hmm. She knows his conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, as an 18-year-old young woman, not a girl, young woman, she deludes herself into thinking that once they start to be more intimate, that she can be more important than his duty that he's been living his entire life. And that is going to be their downfall.
So, which, arguably, he was already willing to give it all up, but, it doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I can't wait till we talk about that section. I know we've had a lot of Chaol sympathizers.
Mm.
And I will say...
Creeping out.
Yeah, and I will say, as I was, re-listening to this going in and taking my notes, I remember thinking, is this the reason why we're upset with him? This?
Yeah.
This is why we're mad?
Yeah.
This is why Chaol gets shit? No, I can't wait to talk about it. Because this is great foreshadowing. Mm-hmm. This is top-notch foreshadowing. This is saying everything of what's to come later. This is going to be Chaol's quote-unquote fatal flaw, which he was already addressing before the flaw could really
present itself.
The flaw was there, but it could have been more flawed. Stick around, guys, because you rants in our future.
What I do know in this scene is that Chaol cannot look at and see Celaena. Quote, Chaol, whose bronze eyes were distant as he took the severed hand from her and offered it to the king. Like Celaena in chapter 1, Chaol is disassociating. He is experiencing this moment outside of his body. In order to stomach what he thinks Celaena is capable of, he has to become distant. So how is that a recipe for true love?
Dun, I see it. I see it.
Oh okay.
Because she's being distant too. Negative times negative equals positive. No.
2 wrongs do not make a right.
Yeah. But 2 rights make a left.
I think it's 3 rights, actually.
So this is a why I choose. I just want to talk about Celaena's thoughts and how she's viewing people here, because that's going to be another character flaw that we're going to see on her end, is how she thinks people view her. Quote, Dorian straightened, glancing away from the head. Chaol just stared at her. She's going to think that Dorian's inability to comprehend, to even stomach or tolerate her, is going to be like the thing that keeps him away from her, and that it's a lot of judgment coming by it. You know, there's a lot of assumptions of judgment here. Same thing with Chaol. She's assuming a lot of judgment from him. Now, we're going to learn on both ends, there's a lot more nuance to it, right? Like it isn't just straight up judging. And I think that her being prepared on how people are going to perceive her, a lot of it is survival tactic, right? Because she can't have people perceive her as Aelin. She can't have people perceive her as this potential rebel. So she needs to get this assumption of everyone. And this is a character flaw that she'll have. I want to point out character flaws are good things, because we got some new listeners last season and sometimes they're like, she's perfect. And it's like, no, we need them flawed, because then we can see the growth.
Right. Every character, SGM writes, is flawed. I mean, otherwise, why would people have such a burning passion against Chaol? Like,
right?
All of our characters are deeply, deeply flawed. That's what allows them to make mistakes and us to enjoy a story about their growth.
An author should always be, if you can ask an author what their flaws are, they should be the first one to list all of them, and then maybe more you didn't even think of.
Excellent point. So to Jac's point, Dorian is shifting in his seat and Celaena clocks it and judges him and thinks, he's got an upset stomach just because of a severed head in a hand. I'm sorry.
Bitch.
He moved. All he did was move. What if he had a wedgie?
Yeah.
What if he needed to adjust his privates? You don't know.
Why does it have to do with his underwear at all? Why are all of your examples have to do? He could have had a rock in his shoe.
That's fair. Maybe because I have a wedgie right now. Maybe that's what it is.
You can pick it.
No, I'm actually joking. Normally I do have a wedgie. Today I'm fine.
Happy for the update. Happy. Everyone, all of our listeners can rest assured that your ass crack is free of wedginess.
Free and clear.
Yeah.
Back to Jac's point, Celaena's feeling defensive. She's feeling judged by Chaol, and she is projecting that onto everyone around her. Quote, Dorian, who had never seen battle, never witnessed the chained lines shuffling their way to the butchering blocks. Perhaps she should be impressed he hadn't vomited yet. I found this moment a little odd, a little off-putting, that Celaena is so aggressive towards Dorian in her own mind. And then I wondered, why would that be other than she is feeling judged by Chaol? I think it's also what we're going to...
Or by Dorian.
She's feeling judged by Chaol, therefore she's also assuming Dorian's judging her.
Gotcha.
But I also think that Celaena is mentally trying to create distance between her and Dorian. We're going to see later when the two of them are alone, she misses Dorian. She wants to talk to him. She wants to spend time with him, but she forces herself to draw a line. And I think right here, we're starting to see the results of that mentally, and it will only continue to be strengthened later on.
Yeah. If you think about it, this is totally her projecting onto everyone else, because she feels like everyone should be judging her. And she's trapped in this truth that she's not killing all of these people, right? The truth is she's freeing everyone, and no one knows that. And she is now the assassin, right? She was able to not be the assassin beforehand, but like in Throne of Glass, right? She was a competitor, and now she has to actually do these things. And I think part of it is definitely her projecting her own feelings of like, I would hate me. So why don't you hate me? I'm disgusted with me because you don't know the truth. I would be disgusted with me. But to your point, there's a lot more happening with Dorian because she wants his friendship, but she also doesn't know how to be friends with him. There's a lot of distance happening between them. We're going to see her dismiss him later on in this episode. And it's to draw a line that Dorian does not understand her. Like, he really does not, because what she said is true. He doesn't understand death and murder. He doesn't understand this part of her. Versus Chaol, she will have a good conversation with him about death and how to process and handle that. Unfortunately, she doesn't give Dorian a chance for that. And like I said, it's a hard thing for her to sit there and to be judged by everyone, or at least in her mind, think everyone's judging. And you can even see it in her own actions. Quote, she didn't dare look at Dorian or Chaol as she put the woman's hand back in the thick canvas sack. She can't face them. She can't face them knowing what she's guessing, what they assume about her.
Which is important for us because it reminds us of Celaena's true heart.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't want to be a murderer. She wanted to be a healer as a child.
Yeah.
But this is an aspect of herself that she has honed in order to survive.
Yep.
Now, the king of Adarlan begins talking about rebel forces that he wants Celaena to hunt down and plans that he has that the rebels are interfering with. Celaena's mind instantly spirals, kind of like it was trying to in chapter 1. But she quells it by, quote, shoving the questions down, down, down until there was no possibility of his reading them on her face. This is a signal to us in case we started this book believing Celaena killed Lord Nerol, that there is a human behind the black mask that Celaena wears. She puts on a wicked smile, but that in and of itself is also a disguise. We need that right now as readers, because if we do believe that she's killed Lord Nerol, we need to know that she's struggling with it for her to remain human to us.
Yeah.
SJM is already setting Celaena and Chaol up with tension. We're already feeling that push-pull tug of war between the two. Here, chapter 2, Crown of Midnight. This, when I was reading this, it was an instant reminder to me that Throne of Glass was indeed about their relationship. They were numero uno couple on the list, not Dorian and Celaena. Dorian and Celaena were kind of the distraction.
Yeah.
We have to have caught onto it in Throne of Glass. Otherwise, this moment between Chaol and Celaena feels completely out of left field.
Yeah, otherwise, this whole entire relationship will feel like it happened out of nowhere.
Yep, exactly. Celaena, quote, avoided the urge to stare at Chaol's face as he gave her the letter, though his gloved fingers grazed hers before he let go. I love the imagery of this moment. Chaol is wearing gloves where Celaena is not. There is a barrier between them physically once again. This gloved hand of Chaol's is like Chaol mentally drawing a line between him and Celaena, which we will see over and over again. It's a barrier of his creation, not Celaena's, and that's important.
I love that. Good job. Second good job.
Now, there is a breadcrumb moment that I want to talk about here. It isn't spoilery for the series. It's just a breadcrumb for the way this book is going to develop. When the king tells Celaena to kill Archer, Celaena thinks, quote, he'd been handsome and kind and jovial, not a traitor to the crown so dangerous that the king would want him dead. It was absurd. Whoever was giving the king his information was a damned idiot. It's so ironic and it's so on the nose, it makes you laugh when you know what is coming. Because actually, Archer is a rebel, which we're going to learn halfway through the book. And Celaena thinks otherwise in this moment. I bring this up because as readers, we're still believing Celaena. She is narrating. We are in her mind. And even though she's often been wrong in Throne of Glass, and will often be wrong here in Crown of Midnight, we like her enough that we trust her, and we are just as gullible as she is because she's our narrator. We're taking everything she thinks to heart. Now, I point this out because it's important to remember how many wrong assumptions Celaena makes and how gullible she can be to believe why she hasn't figured out the truth about Sam's death and her capture, why she hasn't figured out the truth about Nehemia, and, you know, a laundry list of other things. And I see Jack wants to make a comment.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's a hard thing for a writer to have a heroine, a main character who can't figure things out. Because one of my biggest notes that I feel like in every book is you can't have the reader be smarter than the main lead. Now, there are some times you can kind of forgive them. You can kind of say like, all right, well, I can understand it. And it's a fine line that SJM here is really walking of, okay, are we going to dismiss her? Are we going to like say, yes, like you are an idiot. How could you not see these things? Or are you going to trick us, keep it vague enough that we too are fooled and just as gullible as her? So I just want to point out that that's a fine line. And I do think that SJM does it well.
I agree. Having re-listened to the book before taking notes, and granted, it was only 70%, but the moments are there when you know to look for them.
Yeah.
But they are really subtle. She does a really good job, I think.
Yeah, SJM is very weird, where she is both subtle and puts it in your face.
Yep.
It is the weirdest thing, and I have yet to encounter that in another author where they're clearly stating this is, like, there's like a part in Throne of Glass where it's like, she has magic, like very clear, like it maybe not those exact words, but very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the first time you read it, it just goes right over your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She is masterful at it.
Yeah, she's very good. So Celaena is the queen of dismissing things in this book, and we are but her jesters following along.
Plot twist, it's an ad break, but we promise it is still canon.
A fun fact about me is that Spanish was my first language, but I actually lost almost all of it growing up and into adulthood. And it has been my goal the last year to learn Spanish again. My tutor said, hey, you need to do some learning on your off time because you're not going to suddenly learn Spanish once a week with me. And I've been using Babbel in between my tutoring lessons. And I have to say, Maria Jose is very impressed.
That's because with Babbel, you can start speaking a new language or a forgotten language with confidence thanks to its conversation-based techniques that quickly teaches you useful words and phrases.
There's over a dozen languages available to learn at your own pace so that you can achieve your goals with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I love Babbel because it's been handcrafted by over 200 language experts. Babbel's languages are voiced by real native speakers and built with science-backed cognitive tools like spaced repetition and interactive features to fit any learning style. I cannot emphasize how important it is to actually hear a real person speak the language you're trying to learn.
Staying motivated to learn a new language has never been easier thanks to real-time feedback, progress trackers, and handy visualizations in only 10 to 15 minutes a day on Babbel's mobile app or website.
With over 16 million subscriptions sold, Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. So get talking with Babbel.
We want you to learn another language, so we're teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/booktalk.
Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/booktalk, spelled BABBEL.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK.
Babbel.com/booktalk.
Rules and restrictions may apply. Amy, I have a confession.
Oh no.
I used ZocDoc again.
Really?
How do you think I went to the doctor so quickly last week?
Oh, I guess that's true.
Once again, ZocDoc actually got me to go to the doctors.
Twice in like less than a month is crazy for you. And it's all because ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high quality in-network doctors and click instantly to book an appointment because Jack needs instant gratification.
If I can't get the appointment the next day, I won't go because I get too scared in my mind. But I don't have to worry about doctors being in network or anything because they have more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty from mental health to dental health, primary care, urgent care, and you can filter to see which doctors take your insurance.
The filters also let you look at who's nearby, who's a good fit for the medical needs you have, and if they're highly rated by verified patients.
Once you find the right doctor, you can see their actual appointment openings and choose a time slot that works for you, like 9 a.m. the next day. And appointments are made through ZocDoc, so it happens so fast, usually just 24 hours to 72 hours of booking.
You can even score same-day appointments, which I know sometimes there's a need.
So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/booktalk to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today.
That's ZocDoc.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK. ZocDoc.com/booktalk.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra. a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay, courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
I would like to point out that this book happens in 1 month. And that's very different to the last book, which had a couple months, because this day one starts with her getting Asher, the notice to kill Asher. And the very end of this book is her handing in his body. And she says, like, it was to the very day. And we are going to see a lot happen in a single month that in any other time, I might complain saying, how does someone fall in love in a month? How does someone fall out of love in a month? How does all this happen in a month? Unless you were paying attention and you saw that book one is just pre-love story with Kale and Celaena, you might dismiss the time frame of this.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost as if Crown of Midnight was the first book.
Yeah.
Or is the first chapter in the anthology, and Throne of Glass as the first novel is really the prologue. And if you weren't reading the prologue, if you weren't paying attention to the prologue, this journey is going to throw you for a loop.
Yeah. It's funny because it is breaking it down like as if the whole series was one book, where Throne of Glass is the prologue. This is like the first 25% that gets you to the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You drink some water.
Drink. What if I just leave this in and the sip so that our listeners can also sip with us? Sip.
As long as they don't hear us. No.
I'll just leave when we say sip, guys, we're drinking and you should drink too. This is the only podcast that cares about your hydration.
Now, Celaena walked in really, really confident, as she should, with swagger as an assassin. And she has put on this show of being a little bit wicked, a little bit malicious. However, at the end of the conversation with the king, she now reverts to, quote, submissive, yielding, gracious. And instantly when I read that, it made me think of a dog and how Celaena has been compared to a dog a lot in the Throne of Glass novel. Quote, Celaena looked away but forced a corner of her mouth to twitch upward to make her eyes glitter with the thrill of the hunt. It's like she's trying to be modest.
I know, I'm trying to twitch my mouth upward. Because it doesn't go up, it's a twitch.
Yeah, which is not very subtle at all. This moment is supposed to be, again, SJM signaling to us Celaena's true feelings with the description of her actions and the narration in general, which is becoming, I think, more obvious as this chapter progresses.
You think her smirking is a sign of her true feelings?
No. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah,
She's forcing herself to smirk. She's forcing herself to do this, which means she doesn't feel that way.
It's opposite day. Anything she's doing, you can assume it's opposite.
Exactly. We then switch to Dorian's point of view, and he's thinking about how his father commanded Celaena to kill a man and his wife. Quote, Dorian had barely been able to look at either of them. He thought he'd been able to convince his father to reevaluate his brutal policies after the massacre of those rebels in Eelway before Yulmus, but it seemed like it hadn't made any difference. This is reminding us, as readers, of who Dorian is, and that really he is weak, he is incapable of making a difference in this world. Dorian feels powerless, and that is an important starting point, A, because it's true to the end of Throne of Glass, but B, because he's about to skyrocket on a journey in the opposite direction.
A lot of funny things here. I'm currently editing the episode of Powerless where you're saying that Dorian is powerless, and we talk about Dorian having power and not being as powerless. And because he has the ability to make a difference. But this really reminds me of back in Throne of Glass when Celaena was getting her ass kicked by Cain, and he just was sitting there wishing he could do something. And, does Dorian have the power here to go tell his dad, hey, stop killing people? No. But does he have a power to voice saying, what are you doing here? This isn't right. Yeah, like there is something there. Does he have the power to go to Celaena and say, I am so sorry. I hate this. I want you to know I'm fighting for you, that this is wrong. Yeah, he has that power. He has a lot of power, but just like we saw in the first book, not only is he ignorant and not only is he powerless, but he's powerless to his own devices, like in his own mind, which is going to be fun because he actually gets powers in this book. He gets magic, which makes him inherently powerful.
And I think to your point, he's starting from a place of willful ignorance, of willful disregard, because there are going to be moments where he's like, I don't think I want to know the truth about Roland. I don't think I want to know XYZ. He's choosing to not know. Yeah. He is choosing inaction instead of utilizing his position to motivate, to empower other people.
I want to keep in mind, guys, it's been 3 months since the end of Throne of Glass. This is the 4th target that she's had to go and try to kill. So this is the 4th time that Dorian has had to see this. There has been months that have gone by and he is still feeling this way. He is still feeling powerless. This isn't like the book just suddenly picks up from where it left off. Like a certain precedence has been established here, and that precedence is Dorian being unable to stomach anything.
Good point.
Dorian also notices her appearance. Quote, her lovely dresses and ornate clothes were gone, replaced by an unforgiving, close-cut black tunic and pants, her hair pulled back in a long braid that fell into the folds of that dark cloak she was always wearing. We know how much dressing up in nice clothing and nice dresses is part of Celaena's identity. She talks a lot about it. She loves clothes. She loves all like looking nice. And all of that has been stripped away from her because she has to put on this new identity that she has to immerse herself in completely. And it's also evidence that she is hiding who she really is. And Dorian is capable of seeing it and saying, wait a minute, this isn't the Celaena I knew. However, rather than putting, 2 and 2 together of being like, well, maybe she doesn't like this. It's kind of like, she doesn't even wear her nice dresses anymore.
She's completely off her rocker.
She's in the unforgiving black clothes.
No.
Dorian. We wear black. I know.
Oh, Dorian.
Oh,
I have
Dorian.
My throat
Everyone,
is...
take another drink.
I am. It's like I've never podcasted in my life.
I'm telling the listeners they should drink too.
Why does my throat hurt? I have done no talking today. So while Dorian is observing Celaena's lack of dress and her wearing black clothes, he also thinks, quote, she was a beautiful wraith. And when she looked at him, it was like she didn't even know who he was. So again, a wraith is a ghost. Dorian, in his eyes, is seeing Celaena as dead. Their relationship and the Celaena he knew is dead. Now, he's going to try to resist that. He's going to try to be friends with her. But it's very clear to me that the wraith imagery is intentional.
This is the second time we've seen this now, the comparison to a wraith.
Yep.
And the thing is, it's also like contradicting to her beauty, right? I mean, there's a certain thing of like who she is dead, right? She was a beautiful wraith. She's a beautiful dead person is kind of like what he's saying.
Yeah.
Beautiful ghost. But it's Dorian, poetic as always.
Now, I want to suggest that this idea of Celaena being a wraith is in its own way like Chaol with his gloved hand touching Celaena. But in this instance, Celaena is the one that is creating the barrier. She's on a different worldly plane. She is not of his dimension anymore. And we're going to see how that carries out. In this instance, though, Dorian begins to wonder, for the first time maybe, that Celaena used him. Quote, he couldn't help wondering if he'd ever meant anything to Celaena at all. Now, I want to point out he is making his own drama. I think it's a valid concern, but he's causing this for himself.
I want to say he had this similar thought towards the end of Throne of Glass.
I think he thought it, but was like, I don't care. I just want to be with her.
Yes.
I'll prove myself or whatever.
I love her no matter what. I get his logic. I get that there's a certain amount of reason behind that. However, what do we know about him? He's an ignorant baby boy. He just does not understand things. And everything revolves around him. Like, he cannot fathom why she would not like him. He makes a freaking point right now of, I can't believe my father is the one is making her kill all these people and that she's having to do this. He can make that logical connection, but he cannot bring that to say, oh, wow, maybe Celaena knew from the get-go that we couldn't work because she'd be doing all this stuff for my father. Like, he doesn't
I wouldn't like it.
Yeah, like maybe she wouldn't like it either. And Dorian doesn't even have to know about Celena's true identity to put together why Celaena may not like his company.
Right.
It's easy.
It's easy to say, wow, my dad's a dipshit. Maybe she doesn't want to be associated with someone who's related to a dipshit.
Yeah. Dorian's journey is going to be his own ignorance, and then, him kind of realizing it and getting his head out of his own ass, essentially. His value is also placed on her deeming his worth, right? Quote, but he couldn't help wondering if he had meant anything to Celaena at all. He is spiraling with this, but if I didn't mean anything to her, was any of this true? Am I worth it? He doesn't say, am I worth it, those exact words, but we can infer that. And I think that it's not lost on me that by the time the end of the book happens, we can feel like we can see that he's kind of gained his self-confidence back.
Yeah.
But they're also friends again. So
yeah.
It reminds me of, like, this is Ken. Ken's day is made when Barbie looks at him.
Yep. Totally Barbie and Ken vibes.
We now cut to Celena's point of view, and she is getting rid of the head. But Celaena strode quickly and quietly down the hallways and stairwells, taking the now familiar route to the castle sewer. It was the same water that flowed past her secret tunnel, though here it smelled far worse, thanks to the servants depositing refuse almost hourly. Now, we talked about in the last book, and in many other books, that oftentimes water is represented to be cleansing, almost even baptismal. And we said that a lot in her own little secret tunnels, that we saw clean water coming down on her shoes on the stairs, dirty water in the river, and this is no different, right? This is dirty water that is taking away her dirty sins. This isn't quite baptismal water, but it's still trying to cleanse and purify her sins, but she just can't, right? It's just, she's putting a head down there. And it's only enhancing and bringing attention to her sins and bringing more awareness to herself and her own flaws.
Yeah, I mean, she's literally going into a tunnel with a bunch of shit. A, gross. B, this is what Celaena thinks of herself right now. She is just mired in crap. It stains her soul, and she's got a lot of work to do to get out of that.
Yeah, she does.
Now, unlike Dorian, Chaol can see past Celena's persona as a king's champion, or at least he eventually gets there. Who knows what he was thinking in the actual throne room, but ultimately what I think SJM is trying to show us is that he is the one that knows Celaena the best. Quote, "Are you still acting like the king's champion, or are you back to being Celaena?" In the torchlight, his bronze eyes glittered. Of course Chaol would notice the difference. He noticed everything.
He does notice her, like, he does know her the best out of everyone we've seen so far.
Right.
He knows her.
What I find interesting, though, is that despite knowing her best, quote unquote, he still has a hard time reconciling who she is and the deaths he assumes that she's caused. Quote, "It had taken a week for him to even look her in the eye. But what had he expected?" Okay, so he is still passing judgment on Celaena. She is right to think that, which, by the way, Celaena never gives Chaol the silent treatment for killing Cain, so it's a little bit of a double standard.
All right, I hear that. However, stop reading my notes, I can see you. However, how much is he horrified by her actions versus how much is he horrified by his inaction?
Great
We're
question.
going to see,
Great question.
Thank you. Because we're going to see him in his own mind, and he does not judge her. He's actually going to be more in his head about how he killed Cain than what she's doing to these men. If anything, he's more horrified by the fact that she's not killing these men later on when he finds out. He is much more concerned about that. And he even confesses to her how anxious he is when she leaves. I took this to be his own guilt, that every time she leaves, he is stressed about her. He is realizing more and more how he feels about her, and being stressed about her, being worried about her is a certain amount of defying the king, right? Like that he shouldn't be doing this. So when he doesn't look at her, I feel like it's him almost not being able to look at her thinking, I have failed this woman that I care about so much.
Yeah, I mean, and he was near a breaking point. He was packing up his horses. He was ready to go find her because he was worried she might have been caught.
And if there's anything we know about Cale is that he will find the action. Even when, like we were saying, when Cain was kicking Celaena's ass and Dorian did nothing, Cale did go to the edge of the fighting of the line, did go to the chalk and did talk her up. So this is a man who, even in a moment where there is nothing that he feels like he is able to do, he will find some kind of action. And he is truly without action right now.
That's a great point.
Thank you. Turns out I'm a huge Cale apologist right now.
The first time I read this series, I was always Team Cale. Not in the I want him to be with Celaena, but...
Yeah, but like, hey, he's not that bad.
He's a flawed character who learns a lesson. He actually is good at his core.
He is good at his core, and he has always said what he means to Celaena. He has always been honest with her, except for the time that he wasn't. But that's not... But like, it wasn't a lack of honesty. It was following orders.
Right.
And he has always said that he is the captain of the guard. He is honorable. He is an honorable guy. To a fault sometimes. So he confesses, right? And he's guilty and he feels guilty. And Cale is also part of her seeking cleansing. Quote, Cale stepped behind her, still staring at the filthy water where the sack was undoubtedly now caught in the current, drifting out into the Avery River and the sea beyond. He is seeing her sins float away. He is with her in that cleansing. Now, the water is still dirty. And like we were saying, water can represent like cleansing, baptismal, or in this case, the dirty water is representing her sins. And this is a very vulnerable time for her because her sins, the dirty water, the head is being carried away. Now, what is being carried away is into a sea, which will ultimately cleanse it. It's not going to be as dirty as this flowing dirty water at this moment. So there is potential of it being forgiveness happening. But I think it's very poignant that he is there with her in the pit of the castle with all the shit running by. And he is standing there with her, looking at her quote unquote sins and able to look her in the eye.
It's a great point.
Thank you. I can't wait to post clips of this on TikTok and see what people feel about it.
Of me saying, great point, great point, great point.
No. And be like, what was this point? So we can expect what Cale is telling her to be true for many reasons. But I think that SJM does it also with the environment. We can see how she's setting him up for truth. Quote, when you go away, he said, the distant torchlight illuminating the rugged plains of his face, I have no idea what's happening to you. The use of space and the use of light is meant to show the illumination of truth. The light is literally on him in this dark place, and his truth is that beam of light in Celaena's consciousness. Thank you. I'm coming in with the heavy hitters. Can I say words? No. Can I make points? Yes.
So this brings me to a question. Do we believe Cale's honesty / the intimacy of this moment and his relationship with Celaena so early in Crown of Midnight? As Jack has just told us, he's telling her he's worried about her. And every time he leaves, he goes out of his mind. He was about to leave to find her. He pulls her into a hug, which she doesn't resist. And then they walk arm in arm, and he doesn't let go. Let me also say that when he pulls her into a hug, quote, his nose grazed the nape of her neck.
Nose on a neck? Does not get hotter than that.
That is so intimate.
That is so intimate.
That is so intimate. Like,
and he's smelling her too. It's not just that, but like he's inhaling her as also.
I mean, on the rare occasion that my partner does that for me, it's like chill inducing because it's like, oh, you're all the way up in there. This is not something friends do, or at least they should not.
No, I would never.
Please don't.
No, I never will. I don't want my nose anywhere near your neck. It is when it happens to me, when a guy like does that, it is game over. It's like suddenly I'm just like, what standards am I holding? They're gone. Take
Fuck
me now.
Standards.
Yeah. all that this shows now is that there is, like Amy was saying, a very intense intimacy between these two characters. We're only on chapter 2 still, guys. So, I think that this is SJM really setting the precedence of saying these two are going to fuck. This is her saying, like, they're going to get together. They're basically a situationship. They spend all their time together. That's what we're going to get in these initial chapters, is that they constantly worry about each other. They spend all their time together, and he sniffs her neck. While Dorian can't even look her in the eye or really talk to her about his own concerns. And he questions her, like, versus like Chaol is able to like find that physical and emotional intimacy with him.
Which shows Chaol's in it. He wants to be in it, right? He really wants to commit. Dorian was always a fuckboy.
Yeah.
And he's just mad right now that he didn't get his way.
Yes.
I love Dorian, guys. I really, really do. He's just a little brat right now.
He really is.
Now, in my mind, Chaol and Celaena are not the same height. In my mind, her head comes up to his chin.
Okay.
So how can he hug her and put his nose in the nape of her neck?
Oh, it happens.
Like,
yeah, no, it happens. Get Emma in here.
She's not that much shorter than me, though.
Go put on heels.
Yeah, but I just feel like he would have to be like ass out, hunched back, trying to like bend over.
Maybe, but like, I don't know.
I don't think that there is a graceful way for them to have done this.
Well, do we know how tall he is?
I don't.
Do we know who are the guys that she's been with?
Dorian.
Chaol.
Rowan.
How tall is Rowan? I know how tall Sam is.
How tall is Sam?
6 feet under. I saw that on a TikTok. I can't even claim that was mine.
Okay, Rowan is 6'4".
Okay, so I think it's fair to say that Chaol's probably like 6 foot.
6'1".
Okay, and Celaena?
We're about to find out.
Take a sip, guys.
Aelin is listed
probably like 5'6" or something.
Yeah, my height. 5'6", 5'7". Okay, so he's not a full head taller than her.
Yeah.
But he's 6 inches taller than her.
Imagine the stairs are working in their advantage.
I struggle.
Okay, do you know what we need? We need you and Randall to hug.
Okay, that's fine. I usually go up on my tiptoes to hug him.
Yeah, so she's probably on her tiptoes.
Yeah, he would still have to hunch over to get his nose in her neck.
No one is describing that it's a sexy position to be in. It's a sexy thing to feel.
All I'm saying is logistics.
God, it would be so much easier if I was dating someone and I could just feel like, I'm gonna take some photos.
Okay, I will get on a ladder.
Yeah.
And then Emma and I will reenact this.
Lovely. Thank you. Let me know how it goes.
I will.
Back to the notes. Before we get into Celaena's revelation, right, that she's about to tell us that she's actually not killing everyone, I want to note that she takes a bath. And now her sins have been cleaned, and we're able to get the truth of what she's actually been doing.
SJM and her baths.
Yep. She loves a bath, metaphorical bath. That means a lot.
Yep, it sure does. So, for whatever reason, Celaena is unwilling to or has not yet realized how much Chaol feels for her. Because there are going to be times where she is on the verge of recognizing her feelings for him, but she's always backing away from it. Why? Why is she not just taking the plunge? Because she obviously was willing to with Dorian. Why is she so hesitant with Chaol? And we have to explain it with the fact that she is in a life or death situation. She is very confused and has to keep a lot of secrets. And so she's going to hold everything, all of her cards, close to her vest or chest. Quote, Chaol hadn't doubted her story as he inquired about her mission. She couldn't quite decide if that made her feel smug, disappointed, or outright guilty. Again, she is confused. She doesn't know how to feel right now. This is when we learn that she has failed to kill every assignment she's been given by the king in the last 2 or 3 months, and instead has offered escape. Quote, she prepared herself for the kill, but when she realized whose agenda she was aiding, she couldn't do it. She tried to bully and coax and bribe herself into doing it, but she couldn't. This is interesting because, yes, we know ultimately Celaena is compassionate. She's going to do the right thing, but she tried to be bad. She tried to be bad because she knew it was in her best interest. She just ultimately couldn't follow through. Now, is the reveal too soon? We are still in chapter 2.
And we do ask that of our listeners, which we'll talk about more later.
Yes, we will talk about what our listeners thought about this at the end of the episode in Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks. Now, personally, and I almost would have liked to have seen the reveal come when she tells Kale for the first time. So that we could maybe feel some explosive energy the way Kale does it. Like, Kale is like, oh my God, you're crazy. You're going to die now. Whereas for us, we could be like, oh, she was good all along. Anyway.
I feel like it has to happen because of her interaction with Nehemia and Nehemia alone.
Okay, great point. Okay, let's save that for when we get to Nehemia. Actually, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it now. Let's talk about it now.
I mean, we're about to get to Nehemia if we wanted to wait.
That's true.
We'll circle back.
Yeah, we'll circle back. What I will say, though, is that from a writing perspective, if you believed all the bullshit Celaena's been doing up until this point, Celaena might not come across as a sympathetic character. She might not be someone that the readers want to follow into the rest of this novel. So I understand from a writing perspective that the reveal now achieves what all authors want to achieve. They want you, the reader, to like the character and want to follow the character. Otherwise, some readers, especially when we think about the fact that this is a YA book, might struggle to reconcile the King's Champion with the Throne of Glass Celaena and dislike who she is.
Yep, absolutely.
Also, another point from a writing perspective, Celaena's already keeping a bigger, badder secret. And quite frankly, in writing, I don't think you can do both. I think it would be a major cop-out to keep both secrets for so long.
Yes.
So what is important now is that we are learning and remembering Celaena is accustomed to leading a double life. Knowing that she's capable of doing that with everyone around her, thinking that she's assassinated these people, makes it more believable when we find out her true identity. And then I felt like there were so many meta points in this chapter, but the last one I'll leave off with is the underlying question for the entire series. Celaena thinks to herself, quote, "The king had enslaved the entire continent. What more could he do?"
A lot more.
A lot more. I need to take a sip.
Listeners, take a sip. I hope listeners really do drink their water when they, now that I'm going to incorporate this.
I hope so too.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would also love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at the handle BookTalkForBookTalk.
Bye.
Bye.
I already copied and pasted some Instagram stuff over.
Great.
So all we need to focus on is the Google Doc.
Love it.
Yeah.
And the script. Say, oh no, it's all part of the Google Doc.
It's all part of the Google Doc.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Been a while.
Okay.